Welcome back to the Wednesday reading in Luke chapter 20. We're continuing the story where we left off. Luke 20 verse 19. We actually had 19 yesterday, didn't we? But let's do it anyway because, to continue where we came. So the scribes and the chief priests sought to lay hands on him at that very hour, for they perceived that he had told this parable against them. But they feared the people. So they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be sincere, that they might catch him in something he said, so as to deliver him up to the authority and jurisdiction of the governor. Oh, wow. This is getting serious, right? So, as Jesus talked about in the parable, that he had the courage to speak up. I know you, leadership. You haven't always treated the prophets well, and now you won't treat me well either. Actually, you want to kill me. I know what you're up to. That's what he said, right? So basically, he's asking them to repent and change and become good leaders. But they are now out to take him down. They can't have this guy going around speaking badly of them as leaders. They don't like that. So they're now going to take Jesus out permanently. So they need to take him to court, and so they need to find something they can use in court, right? So they send spies. So here come some people approaching Jesus that have no good intentions in mind, right? They're not coming to learn from the great master. No, they're just there to get something on him so they can put him in jail. Okay, so think about that emotion for a while. How would you feel if you saw some people coming, and if you had the ability of Jesus to read their minds and you knew what they were up to? They are here because they want me in prison. They want me killed. How would you feel towards them? A little bit reserved, maybe a little bit grumpy. What? They want to come and kill me? Probably not very many happy thoughts you would have, right, if you were like me. But Jesus is different. He is only filled with supreme love, empathy and sympathy for these people. He understands them, what they're up to, and he feels for them. I want to change these people. I want to rescue them, turn them around. He loves these people. So let's see how he approaches the conversation, right? So 20, they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be sincere, but that they might catch him in something he said, so as to deliver him up to the authority and jurisdiction of the governor. So they asked him, "Teacher, we know that you speak and teach rightly and show no partiality, but truly teach the way of God." All right, so what are they doing? Right? They don't believe these things. It's kind of irony, right? Because all these things are true. Jesus really was teaching what is true. He really was full of wisdom. He did speak what was right. He showed no partiality. He did truly teach the way of God, but they probably didn't believe it themselves. They were just trying to get the sympathy of Jesus. So here comes the question. Is it lawful for us to give tribute to Ceasar or not? Oh, that sounds like a very pious and important theological question, right? Oh, Jesus, do you think we should pay taxes to the Romans? Is that theologically correct? Is that what a good Jew should do or not? And of course, it's a trick question, right? Because if Jesus said, yep, you should pay to the Romans, he would lose a lot of popularity with the people, right? They were not expecting a Messiah who told them to pay the Romans the taxes. They wanted a liberator who could get rid of the Romans. So that would not be a very popular message with the people. But if he said, yeah, don't pay to the Romans, we want to get rid of them, then what would happen then? Here comes the police, right? Jesus would be put in jail and tried for treason against the Romans. So it was really a lose-lose, whatever Jesus said. Kind of like the difficult question the Jewish leaders got, right? What do you think about John the Baptist? But in the first story on Monday, we saw that the leadership in Israel said, faced with a difficult question, no comment. They didn't want to get their hands dirty. They didn't want to speak up what they really believed. Jesus doesn't do that. He speaks up what he believes is the right answer, which was that people should pay their taxes. So even if the government in your country is not one you completely support, you should still pay your taxes. That's your duty as a citizen. So he told them to pay taxes. But the way Jesus answers is so full of wisdom and love. Let's take a look. So we are in Luke chapter 20, and it says in verse 23, he perceived their craftiness. He knew they were just up to trick him, get him in jail. And he said to them, show me a denarius, that's a Roman coin, whose likeness and inscription does it have? Right? He showed them a coin whose image is on this coin. So before we read the answer, which you might have read before, you might know what's coming. But before we read it, let me tell you a story about Rabbi Hillel. So as long as you remember here at Lay Scholars, we're going to teach you about the cultural and religious background of the Bible, right? That's important to know. The things that you can't always read in the Bible, but it's the background to the Bible story. Super important to understand things more accurately. One generation before Jesus, there were two very famous rabbis, Hillel and Shammai. They had passed away by the time Jesus had his ministry, but they had a lot of followers, a lot of disciples. So we talk about the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai. Bet Hillel, Bet Shammai in Hebrew. These followers, the way of interpreting the books of Moses. And this is all written down more than a century, almost 2 centuries after Jesus. It was all written down in a book called the Mishnah. So in the Mishnah, this Jewish book written down at the end of the 2nd century, around 200, it's a lot of discussions among the rabbis written down. Rabbi X says this about this passage in the books of Moses. Then Rabbi Y says another. Rabbi Z says another. They were discussing how to interpret different parts of the books of Moses. And Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai were very important. You'll see them a lot in the Mishnah if you read it, which you should. It's good background information for the Gospels. If you have time one day, order the Mishnah and sit down and read it. Gives you good insight to the background. Now, Hillel, this is one of those two. He was one day walking with his disciples, and then he told them, I've got to do one of the commandments of God now. I'm going to take a bath. And all of his disciples were like, what? A bath? Is that one of the commandments of God? I mean, yep, it's one of the commandments of God. Because, haven't you noticed? And then Rabbi Hillel gives an analogy, a sermon illustration. He says to his disciples, haven't you noticed all the statues of important people in the circuses and I forgot the whole sentence now, but it was different public buildings at the time. Haven't you seen all the statues of important people? There are people who have it as their job to go and clean and wash these images of important people. Then how much more? Kal vahomer in Hebrew, then how much more? This is good logic, right? If this is true, then how much more true is this? If that's important to wash the statues of humans, how much more important is it to wash the image of God, said Hillel. We have to wash the image of God. So a little bit, time out here. Who is the image of God? That's right. Genesis 1. You know your Bible story. It's good. We humans are created in the image of God, male and female. So we humans, we are created in God's likeness. So if it's important that someone cleans the images of these people, how much more important is it to clean the images of God, which is us? And so Hillel went and took a bath. And the lesson for the disciples were, we have to take care of our bodies and keep it clean because we are made in the image of God. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is just to remind you of the concept of the image of God. And that was part of Judaism. It's part of the Bible. It's part of our Old Testament and the Bible the Jews had. They knew they were created in the image of God. So even though you might not have thought about it when you read Jesus' answer in Luke 20, now think about it when we read it this time. Luke 20, verse 24, show me a denarius, whose likeness and inscription does it have? They said, Caesar's. He said to them, then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. What is happening here, I think, is this, that Jesus tells his disciples and the spies who came, that yes, we should pay tax to Romans because, look at this. There is an image of Caesar here. The coin belongs to God. No, the coin belongs to Caesar. It has Caesar's image. You should do that. That's important. But there's something that's even more important, and that is to give the image of God to God. In other words, give yourself to God. You are the image of God. I don't think this is about giving money to two different things. I don't think this is about giving money to the tax man and giving money to the church. Yes, we should give money to the church, and there's a lot of verses about tithe and offerings. So yes, we should support the church financially. But I don't think that's what's going on here. It's give to God what is God's. And where is God's image? It's not on a coin, it's on us. I think what Jesus is doing with these spies is he doesn't criticize them. He doesn't attack them. You're just out to get me. He has love and sympathy for them. And he tells them what they need to hear, which is, my dear brother, I really wish you would give your life to God. Yes, pay taxes, but give yourself to God. That's the most important. He gives them a devotional. He gives them an evangelistic appeal because he loves them. That's so typical Jesus. He's full of understanding and love for people, sympathy and empathy. Even people who hated him and were there just to get him in prison and get him executed, he still loves them, and he gives them a personal appeal. And I'm just like, wow, Jesus. I wish I was more like you. We'll continue the story again tomorrow.